Hello and welcome to Foreign Dispatches, the program that takes you around the world in 25 minutes. I'm Layo Adegoke, standing in for your regular host, Teniola Shobowale. On the program this week, European air carriers have suspended flights over Belarusian airspace in response to Minsk's forced plane diversion that saw the arrest of opposition journalist Roman Protasevich after landing in the capital. Western countries accuse Belarus of hijacking the Ryanair plane and have agreed to isolate the country. Ryanair Flight 4978 was about to begin its descent to Vilnius in Lithuania on Sunday when it suddenly changed direction after a security alert, turning sharply east and descending towards the capital of Belarus, Minsk. Whether that security alert was a fabrication by the Belarus authority is now at the heart of an incident which has sparked widespread international condemnation, raising serious questions about safety in the skies. Our first report takes us through how the dramatic situation played out.
Roman Protasevich had boarded a Ryanair flight which was forced to divert to Minsk in order for Belarus to detain him. The plane landed in the Lithuanian capital Vilnius, its original destination, late on Sunday. Authorities in Belarus scrambled a fighter jet and flak what turned out to be a false bomb alert to force the plane to land earlier and then detain Protasevich, an opposition-minded journalist who was on board, drawing criticism from across Europe. In the dramatic scene, a Soviet-era MiG-29 fighter jet escorted the plane from Athens to Lithuania. The plane was suddenly diverted to Minsk, then took off again for Vilnius. Passengers aboard the plane described their ordeal.
Yeah, we were just waiting, but we didn't have any information, neither from Ryanair nor from Minsk, but only when we got there. Well, before that, it was horrible because we were kept for 3 hours without anything.
At one moment, we just change the direction of flight and we go down and then to the left. After, let's say, 2.5 minutes, the captain of the crew said that we're going to land in Minsk without any reason why.
Ryanair Chief Executive Michael O'Leary said the decision to force the jet to land in Minsk and detain the journalist was a state-sponsored hijacking.
I think it's the first time it's happened to a European airline, but I mean, this was a case of state-sponsored. It was a state-sponsored hijack, it was state-sponsored piracy. But unfortunately, I can't say much about it because the EU authorities and NATO are dealing with it at the moment. We're debriefing the crews. Our crews did a phenomenal job to get that aircraft and almost all the passengers out of Minsk after 6 hours. But we have to do a detailed debrief today with the NATO and EU authorities.
The action has drawn much criticism from Europe, as said. Lithuanian President Gitanas Nausėda has called for sanctions against Belarus if the country does not release the activists. During a live broadcast, the president noted the shutdown of online Tut.by portal, which provided detailed coverage of street protests in 2020, and a raid on the premises of Belsat, a Poland-based TV news channel. He leads international condemnation for the diversion and arrest of the journalist. Germany has called for the immediate explanation, and Poland's Prime Minister called the action a reprehensible act of state terrorism. Russia, on the other hand, has accused the West of hypocrisy in its outraged response to the diversion. Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova wrote on social media, "It is shocking that the West calls the incident in Belarusian airspace shocking." In the meantime, Protasevich's mother, Natalia Protasevich, says she's in a state of shock, having found out about her son's detention, but called her son a hero. Roman Protasevich worked for Poland-based online news service Nexta, which broadcast footage of mass protests against Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko last year via the Telegram Messenger app at a time when it was hard for foreign media to do so. He now works for a different Telegram channel called Belamova, and is wanted in Belarus on extremism charges and stands accused of organizing mass riots and of inciting social hatred, allegations he denies.
On Monday, May 24th, Belarus authorities released video of Mr. Protasevich that appears to have been recorded under duress. He faces charges related to his reporting of last August's disputed election and subsequent crackdown on mass opposition protests, and has said he fears the death penalty after being placed on a terrorism list.
Senior Belarusian military official Andrei Gutsevich says a Ryanair flight was diverted in Belarusian airspace to Minsk airport due to a possible bomb threat. Gutsevich also says the plane was escorted by an MiG-29 fighter jet to ensure the security of the landing. Upon landing, Belarus detained an opposition-minded journalist, Roman Protasevich, who had been on board, drawing criticism from across Europe.
To EU airports, to Belarus airplanes.
Ursula von der Leyen, the head of the European Commission, says Belarus's action is utterly unacceptable, while British Foreign Minister Dominic Raab says there will be serious implications for what he calls outlandish action.
The Belarusian authorities claimed this was in relation to an alleged bomb threat. We've seen no evidence to support that claim. What we have seen is that Belarus scrambled a MiG fighter, forced the plan to divert to Minsk, then used this emergency landing as an opportunity to arrest a prominent journalist. We understand that Mr. Protasevich was detained on spurious charges, including involvement in riots, organisation of actions which violate public order, and incitement of hatred and discord. The UK calls for his immediate release and the release of all other political prisoners in Belarus. We are urgently seeking full details of precisely what took place in relation to flight FR 4978, but the scenario as reported is a shocking assault on civil aviation and an assault on international law. Beyond the diplomatic track, we are actively considering and coordinating with our allies on further sanctions on those responsible for this outlandish conduct. To ensure the safety of air passengers, I've also worked with the Transport Secretary to issue a notice to all UK airlines to cease overflights of Belarusian airspace.
This is an attack on democracy, this is an attack on freedom of expression, and this is an attack on European sovereignty. And this outrageous behavior needs a strong answer. Therefore, the European Council decided that there will be additional sanctions on individuals that are involved in the hijacking, but this time also on businesses and economic entities that are financing this regime. And the hijacking of the plane is also a deliberate and unnecessary triggering of a safety emergency. It has involved an unjustified intervention of a military aircraft. The Air Navigation Service was misused to aid the state in taking control of an EU aircraft, and Belarus used its control over its airspace in order to perpetrate a state hijacking.
Data from the FlightRadar24.com website shows the plane was diverted just 2 minutes before it was due to cross into Lithuanian airspace from Belarus.
I don't have a new definition of what happened here other than to convey that it was, obviously we're outraged, as the international community has expressed and we have expressed as well. And we think this was a brazen affront to international peace and security by the regime. At this point, we're not legally ready to change any of the existing language regarding the terms hijacking and sanctions. Obviously, there are processes to consider that.
Amidst the condemnation, Belarus defended its action by saying that the false bomb threat that prompted the passenger plane to be diverted to Minsk was written in the name of the Palestinian militant group Hamas. Authorities released what they say is a text of the bomb alert as officials seek to defuse a mounting international outcry over what Western capitals have denounced as an act of state piracy. However, Hamas spokesman Fawzi Barhoum denies his group had any knowledge or connection. In the meantime, in a video posted online, Belarusian blogger Roman Protasevich says he is in good health and acknowledges having played a role in organizing mass disturbances in Minsk last year. But the comments were immediately dismissed by his allies as made under duress.
Roman is in Minsk Detention Center number 1, Sofia in Orektsino Detention Center, The lawyer is not allowed to see her. I think many have already watched the video with imprisoned Roman. He said that he is being treated lawfully, but he is clearly beaten and under pressure. There is no doubt that he may be tortured. He was taken hostage like 421 political prisoners, and thousands of people who have not yet been recognized as political prisoners are behind bars.
Protasevich is one of the founders of the opposition news service Nexta, a Telegram channel that has become one of the main sources of news about demonstrations in Belarus. It is hostile to Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko and helps to coordinate protests.
Demanding the immediate release of dissident journalist Roman Protasevich, EU leaders have agreed Belarusian airlines should be banned from European skies and that EU airlines should not fly over Belarus, with a plan for further targeted economic sanctions. The agreement reached on Belarus by 27 European leaders was unusually swift, leading senior Brussels officials to claim they had taken tough action in the face of a wholly unacceptable act.
European Union leaders agreed on Monday, May the 24th, to impose more sanctions on Belarus, including economic ones. They called on their airlines to avoid the former Soviet Republic's airspace and authorized work to ban Belarusian airlines from European skies and airports. While meeting in Brussels, the 27 national leaders of the bloc demanded an immediate release of the dissident journalist Roman Protasevich, as well as an investigation by the International Organization for Civilian Aviation into the incident, during which Belarus forced a Ryanair flight to land in Minsk.
The hijacking of the plane is also a deliberate and unnecessary triggering of a safety emergency. It has involved an unjustified intervention of a military aircraft. The air navigation service was misused to aid the state in taking control of an EU aircraft, and Belarus used its control over its airspace in order to perpetrate a state hijacking. Therefore, the safety and security of flights through Belarus airspace can no longer be trusted, and the Council will adopt measures to ban overflights of the EU airspace and deny access to EU airports to Belarus airplanes. Roman Protasevich must be released immediately. Belarus authorities are entirely responsible for his health and the health of his companion Sofia Sapega. And there was a very clear and unanimous stance of the European Council concerning that topic.
The EU currently has a travel ban and an asset freeze in place on 88 Belarusians, including Alexander Lukashenko and 7 companies, over Minsk's crackdown on protests following a contested presidential election last year. Due to the new sanctions imposed on Belarus, major European airlines have already begun rerouting flights away from Belarusian airspace. The UK has also suspended the operating permit for Belarusian state airline Belavia, and EU leaders have called on member states to take similar action. In a separate development, Belarus expelled the Latvian ambassador and other diplomats after the Belarus national flag was replaced by a historical red and white flag used by the opposition at the Ice Hockey World Championships in the Latvian capital Riga. Latvia responded by also expelling Belarus diplomats. 66-year-old Alexander Lukashenko has cracked down on dissenting voices since winning a disputed election in Belarus last August. Many opposition figures have been arrested since then, while others have fled into exile.
When Foreign Dispatches returns in just a moment, we celebrate the beauty of the African culture, particularly in South Africa. Please stay with us. Welcome back. The UAE government has announced public events will only be opened to COVID-19 vaccinated persons. This new directive, which goes into effect from the 6th of June, is yet another step the country is taking in its ambition to curb the pandemic. Meanwhile, in the tourist city of Dubai, restrictions on live entertainment and weddings are lifted temporarily, drawing reactions from industry practitioners, some of whom have not worked since January. All Channels TV correspondent Mayowa Adegoke has more in this report.
And I thought I did an Iranian accent and everything. Listen,
COVID-19 restrictions on live entertainment and events, including weddings, have been lifted in Dubai. Although this is only for a trial period of 1 month, it is good news for residents and entertainers alike.
as a comedian to know, or as an artist to know that there is a world where we can still do this and not risk each other, then you're like, hey, let's do more of this.
She's like, yeah, he said we're fake.
However, local authorities say permission will only be granted to events where all attendees have been vaccinated, marking a significant step in the city's ambition to get all residents vaccinated. Kathy is the lead singer of a music band and has only received 1 dose of the COVID-19 jab. She says this new rule puts her in a difficult position.
So we are waiting for the second. And that second one, I'm even hearing that after the final vaccination, you have to wait 2 weeks again before you can perform. So it's quite hard and it hurts though. After not working since January, it's really hurtful. Staying in this country without money, you know what it is.
Dubai's new directive allows entertainment venues to operate at 70% capacity, while hotels can already run at 100%. Indoor and outdoor events can accommodate a maximum of 1,500 and 2,500 respectively.
Right now, our situation requires us to be even more diligent to ensure everybody's safe. So yes, either we have concerts or we don't have concerts. Some people might get to go and some people might not get to go. And that's just the reality of today.
And while individuals like Kathy will have to adjust to some short-term disruption, it may be for the greater good. Once fully vaccinated, she will stand a significantly smaller chance at catching or spreading COVID-19, something local authorities believe will help make Dubai safer as it races against the clock to vaccinate the rest of its population.
Democracy is at the core of the foundation of the United States of America, and new laws set forth by states in the U.S. may hinder the ability of all Americans to have access to the democratic practices of voting. Channels TV Washington correspondent Maria Baird tells us more in this report.
The new Georgia voting laws are just the beginning of what we may see across the U.S.
Is it a racist piece of legislation?
I think there are components of it that are indeed racist because they use racial animus as a means of targeting the behaviors of certain voters to eliminate their limit their participation. How these behaviors are targeted. The state of Georgia targeted communities that used these resources for the first time to their benefit, and thus, after 15 years of Republican-dominated use of absentee balloting, it suddenly changed its mind about the utility, the processing. Those laws that were changed in 2021 in response to an increased use by people of color, laws that were put in place by Republicans 15 years ago, and they were perfectly satisfied with the utility of those laws until they were used successfully by people of color.
The executive director of the Southern Poverty Law Center describes the social and racial discriminatory foundation of voting in America.
For Georgia, a state in the South where there's been generations of voter suppression that's targeted African Americans, Black voters, this is really substantial. It was turnout among Black voters that helped Joe Biden win the presidential election here, and then Reverend Warnock and John Ossoff win the Senate races. And so again, for a state that was, part of the Confederacy, that had some of the harshest Jim Crow laws, and again, voter suppression persisted. All through the 2018 election, and then even attempts this year to curtail voting in the Atlanta area.
The U.S. is less than 24 months away from one of the largest congressional races, with all 435 House seats open for contest, and large-scale voting laws are being enacted, which will limit voter access. From Washington, Maria Bird, Foreign Dispatches.
And finally, on the program, as many Africans across the globe celebrate the continent under the theme Arts, Culture and Heritage, Levers for Building Africa We Want, South Africa, a nation with 11 official languages and many tribes, is also celebrating its diversity. Channels TV traveled to KwaNdebele in the Mpumalanga province of South Africa to find out how the Ndebele nation is managing to preserve its culture of bright colors for centuries.
The Ndebele people of South Africa are known as people of color, literally. What others call color blocking, referring to wearing of clothes with different colors at the same time, is what those from the Ndebele culture have done for centuries and are very proud of it. The Ndebele tribe, estimated to be numbering just over 1 million in South Africa, speak isiNdebele and dominate the Mpumalanga province on the eastern side of South Africa. 64-year-old Gogo Sophie Mahlangu is a musician and one of the oldest cultural custodians of the Ndebele people. She spends much of her time painting and beading at her workshop. She also teaches young girls in the community how to preserve their culture.
ngabona nhle ngomma umakatathanda ibhizinisi khulu athanda ukuthengisa afuna amabhuli ayenzela abantu amabhuli enzeni athengise enzeni nami into le yangena kancane 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 kancane.
Through the use of beads and paints, she colors everything she touches with her hands, from linen, furniture, clothing and ornaments, with a variety of colors to give all the material around her an Ndebele feel. 35-year-old Thando Mahlangu is an Ndebele culture activist. He has launched a national campaign to ensure the Ndebele culture is represented on national platforms, including television stations. He made headlines recently when he was humiliated at the Johannesburg shopping mall by the mall manager, who felt that the Ndebele attire he was wearing was exposing too much. However, Mahlangu says, as Africans commemorate Africa Day the world over, they must embrace and own who they are.
What I can say is, Africa, we need to celebrate being an African. You need to celebrate being a black person. You need to celebrate being yourself, you know.
His youthful partner, Ngobile Masuku, is also in this fight.
We must not leave our culture because it's where we belong. If you are a youth out there, you don't take your culture seriously, it might be a problem because sometimes if you don't know your culture, you don't know where you're from.
According to the historians, after their defeat by white settlers in 1883, the Ndebele people decided to use painting and beaded clothing as a way of silent resistance and preservation of their culture. Ndebele culture expert and researcher Tulani Gacha says the fight to preserve the Ndebele culture is a genuine one.
It's a community from the Creator himself. So the Creator himself, he presents himself through the work of Ndebele today. Looking at the art is the language of the Creator. It shows that Ndebele nation, they are cosmic people. They are from the Creator, and they have the special message to deliver in this current time.
And the colors of the Ndebele culture are being projected full spectrum globally by the people. A notable torchbearer is 85-year-old Madam Esther Mahlangu, a mural artist who has painted her people's colors boldly across the world.
Well, this is where we say goodbye till next time. Remember, our top stories are never far away. You can catch them on channelstv.com. Thank you so much for watching the program. I'm Layo Adegoke. Stay safe.